Hi Reddit, I want to tell you about an interesting story that happened to me. I'm not a superstitious person. I'm a freelance writer, which means I spend a lot of time alone in my apartment surrounded by books, coffee mugs, and the soft hum of my old radiator. I don't scare easily. I've written horror stories for years, and I know all the tropes, the mysterious knocking, the haunted mirrors, the old photos that change when you're not looking. That stuff's fun to write, but I never believed in any of it. Until last month. I moved into this apartment in December. Top floor of an old brownstone in Brooklyn. The building's from the 1890s, all creaky floors and drafty windows. But the rent was cheap and the landlord left me alone. Felt like a good place to hibernate and write. It started with a weird sound. Something shifting behind the bookshelf in my office. It wasn't a loud sound, more like a dull thud. Like something heavy settling behind the wall. I ignored it at first. Old building, probably mice or the pipes. Then, one day, I moved the bookshelf to clean behind it and found a seam in the wall I hadn't noticed before. A thin outline like a door, a small one, maybe 4 feet tall. There was no handle, no hinges, just a faint gap and a kind of metal latch near the bottom that looked almost fused to the wood. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't make any sense. I checked the floor plan when I moved in. That wall backed up to a brick firewall. There shouldn't be anything behind it. Curiosity got the better of me. I pried at the latch with a screwdriver until it popped loose with a snap that echoed in the room. The door creaked open an inch, then stopped. The air that came out was cold and damp, like the inside of a basement that hadn't been opened in decades. I didn't open it further. Not then. I shoved the bookshelf back in place and tried to forget it. That night I heard something knock. From inside the wall. It was slow, deliberate. 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. I didn't sleep. The next day I checked the bookshelf again. The door was slightly ajar, more than it had been. I know I hadn't opened it that far, and the latch was lying on the floor. I told myself it must have loosened on its own, that the wood had shifted, that I was tired and imagining things. Then I started finding objects on my desk that I hadn't put there. A child's marble, a button, a tiny ceramic horse, chipped and covered in dust. I lived alone. I never left the door to my apartment unlocked. But every night, I'd hear soft scratching coming from behind the wall. Sometimes footsteps, light footsteps like someone pacing in a small space. I finally decided to open the door. I don't know what I was expecting. A crawl space? Old storage? Maybe some creepy vintage doll collection? What I found was a narrow hallway, dirt floor, wooden walls that curved slightly inward, like the passage had been carved hastily through the structure of the building. The smell was overwhelming. Wet soil and something metallic, like blood. I brought my phone for light and took a few steps in. The hallway sloped downward, impossibly far. There was no way the space existed in a 6th-floor building. I should have been inside solid brick. But the tunnel just kept going. Then I heard a voice. A child's voice, whispering, "Don't turn around." I didn't. I ran. I shoved the bookshelf back in place, nailed it to the wall, and stacked furniture in front of it. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. Then, a new sound started. Breathing. Not mine. Not from the hallway. From inside my apartment. From behind me. I turn and see nothing. But it was there. A soft exhale, sometimes a giggle. I started keeping every light on, every window open. I called the landlord, told him there was a structural issue, tried to act normal. He looked confused and said, "That wall backs up to the chimney, the solid brick. There's no space behind it." I showed him the bookshelf. The door. It was gone. The seam, the latch, the outline, completely gone. Just smooth plaster. He left in a hurry. Told me I needed to get some rest. I tried to convince myself I'd had a breakdown. Sleep deprivation. Isolation. Maybe I imagined the door. But the objects kept appearing. A child's crayon drawing of a man with no face. A shoelace. A piece of fingernail. And last night, I woke up to find the bookshelf moved 3 feet from the wall. There's nothing behind it. But now, sometimes, When I look away from my monitor, I catch a glimpse of someone standing in the corner of the room. Small, thin, watching. They don't move. Not when I look directly at them. But they're getting closer every night. And here's the part one haven't told anyone. I checked my writing folder this morning. There was a new file I didn't make. It's a short story, titled, How I Got Out. And it ends with the line, "Now someone else has to let me in." Thanks for watching. If it's not difficult, share your impressions in the comments and see you in the next video.